I want to thank you all for coming here tonight. We appreciate the turnout. I'm very surprised. I'm happy to see it. As Diana says, hopefully that this is just the first of many that we can put on for programs to help enlighten our residents in town to the problems that are going on, whether it's being seen by all or is operating under the cover of darkness. Again, my thanks to Jeff DeLessio, Don Kavanaugh for helping take part in this along with the other committee members. I have a few guests that I'll introduce at the conclusion of this slideshow. Hopefully most of you can see it, most of you can hear me. If I talk too much, just throw something at me and I'll shut up. In the last 24 months, we've had approximately 10 drug-related deaths in East Long Meadow. Not Springfield, East Long Meadow. Victims that either died in East Long Meadow or were residents who died in another town. Their ages range from 20 to mid-30s. It's way too young. Here's a drug-related death from opiate overdoses for Massachusetts residents from 2000 to 2013. I apologize for the size, but they're showing here a total of, I believe, 7,929 throughout the state in 13 years' time. Patrol officers consistently make possession-related arrests. We get criminal complaints in court, and we process the individuals through court at that time. Many have ties to urban communities. The drugs aren't necessarily, we know on occasion they are sold here, but usually they're brought in from other areas, and they're used in their homes. We found many of the victims in their homes suffering from overdoses. Increased shoplifting arrests that we have. You can literally put a cruiser down in those supermarkets for a day, and they'll be bringing people back. And the people are taking stuff. That was kind of one of the jokes about we're looking for sponsors to help tonight. Downstairs we have some cheese and crackers. I reached out to one of the grocery stores and I asked for some help. And I said, don't make me have my shoplifters go down there because we don't need teeth whiteners, we don't need razors, we don't need baby formula. But if you see things that are locked up in the supermarkets now, you know those are high priority. Those are the items that are being sold quickly. And it's not for these personal gain by the victims, it's for their habit they need that day. These are some heroin packets and the needles, how they're packaged. Here's some others. They have different write-ins on them. This is some of the stuff that we've recovered in our town through arrests. It's marijuana and oxycodone, morphine, heroin packets. And if you see these little packets around your house, you usually see them in parking lots sometimes, or they've just shot up and they get rid of it. It's that, you know, they're not neat freaks. They're not throwing the stuff in the trash. They just leave it on the ground and move on from there. Oxycodone. This is one of our drug take-back events that we put on under the auspices of the Drug Enforcement Administration. We've run six of those programs, and we've taken close to 1,000 pounds worth of drugs. As Jeff will point out, he opens up the containers and just throws the pills. So the weight that's being weighed is the weight of the medication, not the plastic capsules or the packs or anything else. That's a whole lot of drugs. This is the total here, 996.4 pounds was what was turned in. The drug trends, the decriminalization of marijuana has caused people to believe it is safe. What we're finding out is many times the marijuana that some of the children in town are getting and some of the adults are getting is laced with other drugs, which causes more problems when it's consumed. Marijuana can be laced with other narcotics. Prescription painkillers are less detectable by parents, employers, and law enforcement. Abuse of a prescription drug often leads to heroin abuse. We've seen in the past, and I know Jeff has talked about it in some of the conferences and some of the meetings that we've had leading up to the seminar, is marijuana has been identified as a gateway drug. We had a presentation that was at LCAT earlier in February by a 17-year-old high school senior. And he started with marijuana and progressed up to psychedelic mushrooms. Doesn't mean everyone that smokes a joint is going to do mushrooms. They could do some other type of drug, but obviously it's a gateway drug. It gets them in, starts them off into Some cases, hopefully in this young man's future, he can make a full recovery. Some don't. This is a script. Do we have copies of this, Jeff, somewhere, or do we have programs?
You can maybe address the website there. They'll pull up that.
Yes, if you go to www.naddi.org, you can look at a sheet. So if in some surveillance activities you may be doing in a certain loved one's bedroom at night or on a weekend and you come across some strange looking pill, a lot of them will have either initials on them or numbers on them or some type of descriptions. This chart is a good reference chart to use to try to get an idea of what it may be. Our response is we're trying to work. This came about, as I've said, and you probably read it in the media, and it seems like last week I've been having microphones stuck in my face all the time. But we had gone, it was a year ago one day. It was a year ago yesterday. We went up to Greenfield Community College to hear about this opiate crisis. At the time, we weren't hearing much going on in Hampden County. We weren't receiving any direction. There was different operations that were going on, and there was no outreach. So we heard about this. Myself, Sergeant Manley, and Sergeant D'Alessio took a ride up there. And it was roughly, what, a 4-hour conference that we had? But they had heavy guns up there. They had congressmen, they had district attorneys, they had all types of big shots that were there. And the crisis that they had in Greenfield is they wanted beds for treatment. That's what they needed. They knew they had a problem, and they were trying to correct the problem. It hasn't been that black and white to us as far as, we're not going out tomorrow night and picking up 3 kids that have OD'd on heroin. We're getting kids in their 20s and their 30s that we're either finding ODing. One call they went, the needle was still in the person's arm. They were using Narcan and they brought that child back. That child's still with us. He's, I believe, 29 or 30 years old now. It's been 3 years. The sad thing is he still may be using. Narcan's great, but a lot of times the victim has it on them and the family has no idea that their loved one's a heroin addict and that he's in an overdose situation. So the Narcan can sit in his pocket and he passes away into the night. The focus of us going up there and getting more information and coming back, I reached out and got a hold of Marie Graves from the Springfield Health Coalition, which is funded by the city of Springfield. Don Kavanaugh and I went down and met with her. And then we came back, talked to Kelly LeBrod, reached out to the superintendent of schools, and I'm very proud to say this is not a community that sticks their head in the sand and says it doesn't happen here. I'm very happy to see you all here tonight to hear this presentation, to become partners with us. I don't have all the answers. Jeff doesn't have all the answers. I have the colonel of the state police. He doesn't have all the answers, the district attorney. But we're here to listen. We're here to try to help and offer support and guidance in a direction to turn these kids' lives around and young adults' lives around before they become a statistic. As Pat Manley said when we started looking into this, if these were manslaughter cases or homicides, there'd be hell to pay. What are the police doing about this? The fact that we've lost 10 kids, 10 people, 10 young adults from this community in such a short period of time, and no one's saying anything. If it was a car accident, if it was drunk driving, you'd have all types of enforcement. The problem is it's drugs. It's either a prescription drug, it's an illegal drug that they're getting their hands on, and they're abusing it, and that's the problem. What we want to do is have you start checking around your house when we do these drug take-backs. Get rid of the stuff that you're not using. The example I use, I had both of my knees replaced last summer, and oxycodone and Percocets are great friends of mine. Fortunately, it didn't last. I mean, I think I got better, I know that, but I'm no longer on the scripts. But I had no problems. Each time I went to the doctor, how are your pain meds? Do you want some more? I mean, I go and I get a script for like 50. And my daughter's a pharmacist. I asked her, what are they worth? She's a lot of money. So, I mean, I could have made a couple bucks on the side that summer, but there are other people that take that because they need to take that. That gets them through the day. And what we want to do is just have you take a look around your house and what drugs are there you're no longer using. Next step is reach out to your parents' house and see what they have there. And that's what we're seeing in the past is there's individuals that will go through and they'll raid grandparents' medicine cabinets and take whatever they, chances are they're older, they can't count that good, they can't see that good, they must have dropped the pill, they don't realize 10 are gone. Our police department works hand in hand with the Eastern Hamilton County Task Force. It's a drug task force. We do active drug investigations. We've had a few that have occurred in this community. And what we're seeking now is a community partnership to work together to combat this abuse problem. Chief Michael Diamante, the chief from Dedham, and I butcher his name every time I say it. I saw him call him Chief Mike. His comment to the Globe was, "We will never arrest our way out of a nationwide heroin and opiate abuse problem, and we must take realistic approach in responding to it." We can lock up everybody under the sun, but at a period of time, the jails are going to be full. The hospitals, the beds for treatment are going to be full, and it's just going to continue to go. We're not addressing what the problem is. If it's counseling they need, let's get them the help that they need and move forward. These are contact information. We have a tip hotline. We have a Twitter account. All these things, I don't know how half of them work, but they're there. And so Twitter throws me sometimes, so I'm like a hash mark here in the dark. Jeffrey, would you like to make some comments about investigations that you've done and some literature that we'll have to hand out later?
Yeah, we have at the door, you've got some handouts, some photocopies. It's what the opioids are from a poppy plant, and from that the heroin comes from the same plant. It's all chemical maneuvering when it comes to the heroin, but if you want to learn more, you can read that handout I gave you, and then go on to Wikipedia and they'll break it down even more for you. The other one was the Governor Baker's commitment to the state. He's following the footsteps of Governor Duvall. They're committed to solve this problem. They're putting money into it, and hopefully the money will be well spent. But there's the handout there. It tells you what he's doing as your government. As far as the town goes, we see influx of drugs all the time. We like to think that the heroin problem obviously comes from greater places down south and works its way up out of New York City into Holyoke, and then comes through Springfield and works its way back into our community. So it's tough. It's a cheap drug right now. Marijuana is more expensive right now than heroin. You can buy marijuana for about $250, $300, depending on where it's coming from, an ounce. For you older people that might have dabbled in it years ago, that's way over what you guys were ever paying back then. Heroin packets, depending on where you're getting it from and who you are and how much you're buying, they're those little wax paper things, they go from $4 to $6 a packet, okay? And so you do the math on where it is. If you're looking for a different kind of high and a different and an economical high, you might wind up in the heroin business. And once you get into that business, it's tough to get out. Whether you're a 1 bag, 2 bags, 10 bags, there's people that are 40 bags a day, easy. So what the chief was relating to is it affects everybody. Even if you're not on it, the big Ys, the Stop and Shops, the little mom and pop stores, the Staples, they all get shoplifted. And a lot of our shoplifting arrests are drug related. Probably 95% of them are to feed their habit. And so it affects everybody in some shape or form. And just want you to be aware out there that you can educate yourself on it, and that's our goal here, is to educate everybody so you don't have that person, your loved one, in that position down the road, because it's a tough habit to kick. And a lot of them will tell you, as this program goes on, hopefully we'll be bringing people in front of you that are going to be addicts or past addicts, and they will explain what their life is about. And sometimes you can catch it on TV. You can catch the National Geographic. They got Drug Inc. going on right now. That's realistic. That show right there is realistic of what a person on heroin goes through every day. It's airing right now. They throw it on there quite a bit. They go through different cities and towns. But if you really want to know what it's like to be hooked on heroin in particular, that's the real deal right there. So from East Long Meadow's point of view, we try to stop it from coming into town. You can only do so much. We like to nip it off at the head, so to speak, and before it gets into town. That's our goal. That's our other goal, is to educate you guys so that maybe your loved ones. It's easier to educate than it is to treat, cost-wise. It's a lot cheaper to educate someone to stay off the stuff than it is once they're hooked on it. So with that said, you got your district attorney and Mr. Alban.
Colonel Alban, could I ask you to come up and Thanks very much, Chief, and I want to say hello to everyone. I'm here certainly as the superintendent of the state police tonight, but also as a resident of East Long Meadow and a father of 3 kids that went through the school system here. And so I share much of the same interest that you have. You know, the chief, I think, has cited a lot of really important statistics, and they're all accurate. When back in the fall, it's really interesting, the idea of overdoses and deaths attributed to this is not a new phenomenon, but every Monday morning I get reports about what our investigators that are assigned to the district attorney's office do around the state. And so you have a district attorney, Anthony Gallooni, who's here tonight. He has a team of about 20 detectives that are from the state police assigned there. They go out to deaths. We call them unattended deaths, suspicious deaths around the state of Massachusetts. They do it in conjunction with the local police officers. And so in the fall, every Monday, when I was reading these reports, I'm seeing this uptick in these deaths that look like they were probably attributable to overdoses. And by December, I said to our detectives, our commanders, I want you to look at this a little bit closer. I want you, when you go to these deaths, particularly with young people, start paying attention to what's there. Don't say that it was, necessarily natural causes. Look for things like needles, packets of heroin. Talk to the families. Try to get some feedback on what they've been doing, where they've been. And then I want you to put it in our database that way, and I want you to report it back here to headquarters. Every weekend it was 10, 12. And it ultimately hit 114 of these, what we call suspected heroin overdoses, just in December. And since September, it's 376 deaths across the state of Massachusetts. Now, I'm shocked by that. I really was. And I've been in this business for 32 years. I've seen a lot of things. I've seen a lot of death. But that number really stuck with me. And the average age was 34 years old. It still is. It's absolutely awe-inspiring to see this. And so we reached out to the Department of Public Health, the State Department of Public Health, to try to create some dynamics, something that we could do collectively, somehow that we could put this data together to try to look at patterns and similarities between communities. This is not an urban crime problem.
That's right.
It's not. It's, if you saw the list of people that have passed from this, it's in virtually every community across the state of Massachusetts. It's in communities like East Long Meadow and Beverly and Northampton and Amherst, but it's also in communities like Lowell and Lawrence and Brockton and Holyoke. So we are working with DPH to try to gather more of this data. We're working with the DEA and with our state police contingents across the state to try to focus more now on the sources, where it's being sold, and who is actually purchasing this. But I would tell you, as parents or friends or family of people that you think are afflicted by this, the things that you have to look for are things like unexplained need for money all the time, things that are being stolen from your home or pawned, for example. Those are the key indicators, the red flags of this kind of abuse. And the only way out of this, and I completely agree with the chief, is it's not going to be through arrest. It's going to be through getting these folks to the proper treatment before this becomes catastrophic and a death knell. So these are staggering statistics. We're in the midst of a real problem, not only here in Massachusetts, but really across this country right now, with trying to deal with this. It's really, as the chief said, if this was car accidents, if these were statistics from Afghanistan or Iraq, if these were shootings in any community, we would be outraged over this. Unfortunately, as a society, we attribute this to a drug problem, and it's somebody else's problem, but it's not, it's ours. Thanks very much, Chief.
Thank you.
Before I invite the DA and Assistant DA up to talk, I just want to, as I told you, we went to Greenfield for that presentation. I had the misfortune, I met George Graham from the Union News, and I was a little interviewed up there as well. When I come back a few days later, the article that I was interviewed was mailed to me along with a letter written by the mother of a daughter who died of a heroin overdose. She was a young lady that grew up in this town, graduated from the high school. She's been getting treatment. There was a screw up apparently with her health insurance carrier, her medication she couldn't get, and she had a fall back into heroin, and Mom awoke to find her on the bathroom floor dead from an overdose. So she thanked us for at least pursuing more information on this crisis, and again, I can't say how much I appreciate you folks all being here tonight to listen to this. Without further ado, District Attorney Anthony Gallooni and Jen Fitzgerald.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Anthony Gallooni. I'm the District Attorney here in Hampden County. Jennifer Fitzgerald is somewhere behind the chief here. Jen is the first Assistant District Attorney in Hampden County, and we're here to lend our support and tell you about what we can do as a District Attorney's office. I think first and most importantly, you all for being here deserve a round of applause and real congratulations and our appreciation for taking time out of your schedules to be here, because there's great leadership. I mean, to have Colonel Albin, who runs the state police statewide, to be here, and a terrific chief like Doug Mellis, who is so committed to this cause, is important. But the most important thing is your involvement and your willingness to learn, your willingness to be proactive and understand how to prevent these issues. Because I think the most important thing, or one of the most important things Chief Mellis said, is that you look at Greenfield and the arc is different. I think here in Hampden County, in this area generally, places like East Longmeadow, we're probably earlier in that arc than maybe out west and in other places in this state. So there's a real opportunity with the right education and with your involvement, your appetite to get in front of this issue to prevent some of the deaths. There have been far too many in the last couple of years. Colonel Albin's statistics are absolutely staggering. And some of the statistics we see in terms of the rise from year to year in what are essentially provable drug-related deaths is shocking. But we can prevent this now through these kinds of efforts. And I can tell you on our end, in addition to what the East Longmeadow Police is doing and what the state police is doing, we're doing our part to engage in education and prevention with young people as much as we can. I try to go to these kinds of events. I was at one in just a couple weeks ago in West Springfield. We have members of the West Springfield Police Department who do a terrific job as well. But this is so important. And the thing that I guess I can impart that kind of comes together both personally and professionally is it happens to everybody. I'm a Cathedral High School graduate. So I remember in the years after I graduated, I heard about some of my friends, some of the people with whom I went to school, suffering from addiction. Some died, and I couldn't believe it. I said, these are kids that went to Cathedral High School with me, graduated from a private high school. Kids with families I knew, two great parents. It happens everywhere. Hampden County is a very diverse place, socioeconomically, in geography, in every way. And the crime is different, but there's one constancy. It's that this addiction problem is in every community. And believe it or not, it's here in East Longmeadow. It's in Longmeadow. It's in Springfield. It's in Holyoke. It's everywhere. It spans the spectrum. So the fact that you're here learning about the warning signs, so to speak, learning how to deal with these issues, because as the chief said, and as Colonel Albin said, prevention is a lot easier and a lot cheaper than dealing with the addiction when it happens. So when we confront these issues in the courthouse, when folks are arrested either for the possession of drugs or for crimes sort of related to their addiction, our first inclination, our hope, is to deal with that addiction and not punish, not incarcerate, to deal with probation, to deal with diversion programs, to help the person deal with their addiction. We try to use it as an opportunity, in many cases with young people, to address the core problem and hopefully solve it, so it doesn't become a revolving door. They're in and out of the courthouse, eventually dealing with full-blown addiction, in some cases death. That is what we're trying to prevent. So we're doing that. So I can assure you, if you have children, if you have family members, friends dealing with these issues, you can come to us in the district attorney's office. If there are criminal-related issues, we understand the underlying problems. We certainly understand addiction. There's one other point I want to mention, and that's the issue around prescription drugs. I think along with marijuana, I would agree with the Colonel and Chief Mellis. Marijuana is a gateway drug. Not everyone that smokes a joint, like the Chief said, is going to end up using heroin or something worse. But it's still a cause for concern for you as parents and you as guardians. But the other thing I want to mention is prescription drugs. If you have expired or excess prescription drugs, get them out of your house. Get rid of them, find a disposal center. Worst case scenario, you flush them. Don't let them languish in your house because they find a way to get in the wrong hands. And it's really how it starts in many, many cases. I saw a statistic recently that something like 80% of people with heroin addiction started with some kind of prescription drug. So it's a real problem. It's sort of a new gateway drug to these opiate addictions and to heroin in particular. So Sheriff Ash and I are at the very early stages of a program to put disposal bins in all the police departments across Hampden County. So in every police department, hopefully over the next 6 months or a year, you'll see a disposal center where you can responsibly and safely dispose of your expired and excess prescription drugs. So they're not sitting in medicine cabinets, they're not laying on top of a trash can where kids or people who are looking to misuse them can find them. So that's a project on which we're embarking along with the Sheriff's Department and Sheriff Ash, and I think that's an important thing. So I hope you see that very soon, and we'll certainly announce that. But again, I'm here to answer any questions. Jennifer is also here. We have great programs. We're going to keep working on this issue and keep our partnership alive and strong with the state police and the East Long Meadow Police Department. But really, I want to thank you and commend you for being here because this is the first step. You're the most important piece in this fight, in this battle against addiction, and getting in front of it and preventing it. So thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Don Calvin. I'm the school resource officer. Chief kind of is unfamiliar with the technology aspect, so he went through the slide here. But our station number up there, obviously, we do have this tip line 486-9005. It's important to know that at this point it is not anonymous. It's not like a text-a-tip that the Sheriff's Department does, which you can't access. But we do have that as a resource in case you do have information or you require information. We often post on Facebook, which some of you may have seen throughout the past couple of weeks. We tried to kind of hammer the Facebook because we know that a lot of people jump on there and get it. So at this point, if you have any questions, Chief Mellis, D.A. Gallooni, Colonel Alvin, go ahead.
I just want to ask about Narcan. Does our fire and our police carry Narcan?
We do not. The EMS crew that we have contract with does.
So
What did he say, the EMS
EMS
does?
EMS does.
AMR is a
AMR,
provider.
the ambulance service carries Narcan.
Okay, so I just wanted to just play off of something that Colonel Eldon said, because during the day, I work with the addicts. I am one of the nurses at the homeless shelter, so I work with people who suffer with addiction all the time. And I just want to say, on my way here, I saw a billboard, and it said, it was talking about a kid, and he said, my son gets good grades, he played high school sports, and he's addicted to prescription drugs. Just a little thing, the whole drug thing gets started sometimes very innocuously, and one of the ways it gets started, when you think about the prescription drugs, it's prescribed to your kids. It's prescribed to your kids legally through a doctor's office, through a dentist's office. My son the other day went and had a tooth pulled. He was given a prescription for, I can't even tell you how many Percodan. Okay, that's how they get started. They're given these drugs, and as parents, you think that your doctor, your dentist is doing your child a favor. They're doing you a favor by giving you these very large prescriptions. That's how they're getting in the community. Okay, then they sit in the cabinet because you can't throw anything away, because God forbid that you might need it later on. So please, my plea is, I would love to see those containers in the police stations. We need to get these drugs off the streets. That is how they're getting them. And innocuous as they do seem, that's a little hook for the kids, and it just takes one use, and you can get hooked, really. And the prescription drugs, the Percocet that they're taking, they sniff it, and then it leads to heroin. Why does it lead to heroin so quickly? Because Percocets are expensive on the street. It's $1 a milligram. They are absolutely right. Heroin on the street's $4 a bag. It's very cheap. It's a similar high. So that's how that jump is being made. So if I could make a plea, please get rid of all the stuff that comes in over here. We'll be well with it.
Is there another question out there?
I just have a comment that it's a disease. So we really need to look at it like, you know, they're going to go to treatment and get well. This is, you know, cancer is a disease, diabetes is a disease, so is addiction. And it just, you just can't go somewhere and just get fixed like that. And it's not a bad child trying to get good. This is a disease, and it's, I could go on and on, but then once they get arrested, they got a Corey, and then they can't get a good job because of these, you know, Class A is a felony. And then, so it just goes on. And the colonel, I was so happy because I was like having heart palpitations when he said urban. And I'm so glad you said that it's everywhere, because it is everywhere, and that's why I'm here. I have grandchildren that are going to East Long Meadow schools, but it doesn't matter. Even if I didn't, it's everywhere, and that's why I want to make my voice known. And Geraldine is right about the medications and stuff. It starts, but I mean, sometimes us as parents, because I'm a parent, you know, we want to say, no, not our kid. You know, or the nodding. Another thing he said, look for nodding when we're just dozing, spoons, all types of things. But you know, really be vigilant, because it's you know, everybody's kids. Somebody has somebody in their family that's an alcoholic, an addict somewhere. Somebody's uncle, aunt, grandmother, grandfather. And I commend the East Long Meadow School for doing this.
Thank you. Any other questions? I think we're a little over on time, are we? Kath?
We have a couple minutes left. Before they announce, so.
Okay, we only had 25 minutes, and we kind of threw a lot of stuff at you. I'm jumping around a little bit when I'm talking. So, the big picture here, it can't be explained in 25 minutes, but we want you to walk away with some kind of understanding from this particular presentation. As we move forward in this program through the town, hopefully we'll fine-tune our mistakes and make it more educational for everybody, because that's where the bottom line where it's going to come in is education. We're going to do our part as a police department to take it off the streets, but like they said, you cannot arrest yourself out of this. There's no way. If you watch those shows and watch how much stuff comes into this country, even big seizures don't make a dent into the drug trade.
So when I was going through school in East Long Meadow, we had the DARE program.
Yep.
Does East Long Meadow have any plans to maybe put that back into place, or is there going to be education for the children?
I can't speak, the DARE program is no longer in existence, I can tell you that. I can't speak for the school department. Our ultimate goal, though, I don't know if anyone's here, is hopefully, depending on, everything comes down to dollars and cents, is to get some kind of program back into the schools for the kids on this type of problem, drugs and the addiction. That is an ultimate goal, but whether or not it's going to happen remains to be seen.